A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mimi Kalinda, and I'd like to welcome you to this very, very special event, day 2 of our program. Thank you for coming back. And if this is your first time, we have tons of very, very interesting and exciting stuff in store for you today. Now, you'll remember that yesterday we spoke about how digitalization is changing the world of manufacturing and supply chain industries. So much change happening around us. We had wonderful speakers, and we have very exciting presentations to go through today as well. So, SAP and OneConnect will take us through specific digitalization solutions for supply chain and manufacturing, as well as how SMEs can benefit in these very trying times from some of these solutions. So, our program today is filled with many presentations. So, put your seatbelt and get ready. These include Peter Deval, who's SAP's Industries and Customer Advisory expert for digital supply chain and manufacturing, and he'll be giving us an overview of integrated business planning. Carlos Portillo, SAP's EMEA South Business Development Manager, will be taking us through their intelligent factory and maintenance operations. And Julia Muller, who's the Senior Product Specialist at SAP, will be giving us a game changing live showcase. I'm really looking forward to this of SAP's design to consume product. And finally, OneConnect's Group CFO, Lesego Mosuke, will tell us exactly how SAP and OneConnect can tailor make solutions for the SME sector. So a lot going on today, and I can't wait to get into it. But before we do that, just some housekeeping to let you know that the program today will end at 1:30, and we'll have several intervals throughout the program where you will get the opportunity to ask your questions in the chat function below your screen. So please think of your questions, note them down, and as we go through the day, you'll have the opportunity to ask them as well. So let's get right into it then. Have you been looking at improving your planning processes? Planning for businesses, specifically in these times, has become increasingly important. So today, we will gain insight into a next generation planning solution that supports the entire process from supply to demand. So we're going to be talking about how to meet future demand globally and profitably with SAP integrated business planning. And it is now my pleasure to introduce to you Peter Deval, who's SAP's Industries and Customer Advisory expert for digital supply chain and manufacturing. He'll be taking us through some of SAP's HANA in-memory technology. Very, very exciting. This is a real-time supply chain planning solution that combines capabilities for sales and operations, supply and demand planning, and inventory optimization. And after his presentation, we'll take advantage of powerful supply chain analytics in IBP Control Tower, what if simulation, alerts, and much, much more. So, Peter, welcome. I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I am I'm in SAP now for a couple of years, but in my previous life, let's say I was a consultant that's implemented these solutions for many years. And thank you. I think that makes it probably a bit more relevant because, you know, in the years that's passed, we've seen many planning tools. SAP IBP is a planning tool that's been around for probably about 8 years now. And in this view that you're seeing on here now, you can see that it is actually already adopted by more than 1,000 companies of SAP's customers that we have now. And of course, there's many more customers, but more than 1,000 are using it. And you can see that from a planning perspective, you know, the kind of average users per day that logs on to the solution, and the kind of inventory optimizations runs per day, the amount of supply planning and optimization of your supply chain. So many customers using multiple sets of data every single day within IBP. And also we are represented through many countries, and many partners within these countries are certified SAP consultants. So IBP consultants, in fact. And it covers all of the industries that we're used to, for example, chemical, dairy, even your oil and gas, etc. So many industries covered there. Now, if we look at IBP as a tool, where does it fit in? And we have this concept called synchronized planning. And really what it means, if you think about planning within your business, there's things like financial planning, transportation planning, there's inventory, there's production, and even supplier collaboration and planning on that side. Now, IBP has got some core capabilities, and that's demand planning and forecasting capabilities, the sales operations planning modules, so response management with orders, and deployment planning. Now, what it means is that all of these solutions talk to each other all the time. So it's a synchronized process. So whether you're using a financial planning product and you want to integrate your demand plan and production planning capabilities into IBP, that is totally capable of doing that. And what we have in SAP is obviously a out-the-box integration between these solutions. Now, we also talk about a concept of simulations and real-time information. So if I just take some of these components that I've sort of spoken about in terms of asset management or plant maintenance, making sure that your plant is maintained properly, and then whether we are going to take that into account when we do manufacturing planning. Because, of course, if they're maintaining an important piece of equipment, you would want to make sure that your maintenance equipment is available while you're doing manufacturing planning. Or the same goes for logistics and transportation, and even your sales plan and forecast to your customers. So all of this in terms of simulating what-if analysis and making sure that what if I have to take down an important piece of equipment? How will it influence manufacture, my sales, my transportation, etc.? So that is what we are achieving through IBP. And then we have what we call a control tower view that actually has an overarching view over all of these solutions. So that is what I'm going to actually do for you now in a short demo. And what I've done is I've actually logged on to a supply planning, IBP planning system. And you'll see these look a lot like just applications that are available. And you see here applications called intelligent visibility, you have dashboarding, you have sales input screens, you have analytics. And on the top here, you can see sort of different roles. So what you've seen just now, what I spoke about is the sales and operations planning. So these are typically different roles within the organization. And then each of these roles essentially have a set of applications that person would use to plan an environment. Now, what I've done is I want to start with intelligent visibility, and I've logged on to it already. I've opened the application. And here you can see a representation of your supply chain across the world. So whether you're based in South Africa only and you want to see the South Africa operations, or you have branches going into Africa, or globalized like we see here, you can see all of the sort of supply chain hubs that you have in your environment. And clearly, of course, our eyes are drawn to some alerts that's been created here. And this is what we call alerts that are created to monitor your supply chain. We don't want to look at the supply chain all the time, open reports and that. We want to be able to open, for example, a node and see what alerts has been generated. So now what I'm doing is I've just clicked on that single alert there, and I see there are 13 subscribed alerts within that. And really what that is, if I click further into that, this is an alert that's been created where the forecast revenue is below target. And in this forecast, there are 13 instances of that. So these are the 13 months in which our forecast is lower than the budget. So if you're thinking about your budgeting process, you would release your budget into IBP, which is an operational and a tactical planning solution. And you can always compare that within IBP, you are able to meet your budget. So the salesman or the demand planner would be quickly able to see that there are issues within in the supply chain, and they need to resolve that. Now we have what we call a procedure playbook. Now this person would say, well, where do I start? How do I solve this problem? And you can publish like procedure playbooks where we can try and identify what some of these issues are. So we can maybe start looking at some of the regional impacts, which region are impacted by this, what are some of the new products that's been introduced, etc. So I'm just going to click on one of these, and what it will now do, it will now take me into additional dashboarding that help me to identify what those regions are that are affected. So this is a dashboard that's available from some of those apps that I showed you right in the beginning. And here I can see 3 regions, and I can see I've got the EMEA, I've got APJ, and I've got the US. And clearly on some of these, I've got a very big gap between those regions. And I can then, of course, select some of these and drill down further into more information. So where we've started in intelligent visibility with an alert, I'm already able to identify which products, and here I can see there are some products and product families that are affected by that demand shortage. And I may want to resolve that using maybe new forecasting techniques or so. I'm just going to close this tab for now and go back to that intelligent visibility app. And here, for example, now I can also decide to drill into other systems. So let's say I wanted to go and drill into another financial dashboard. I want to drill into our S4 HANA system. For example, here I want to drill into another dashboard. And maybe look financially, how am I doing? Because if I'm going to not being able to meet my budget, what would that mean in terms of my financial, my revenue targets, etc.? So what it does now, it allows me now to drill into different areas within my supply chain and get different perspectives of that. So while it's updating, now one thing that we've said is this is a real-time analytics space that we're in. So what is happening, it's reading the data for the entire business directly in IBP, so there's no transfer of information between systems required. This is a real-time environment, so what you see here is live information. And so as we're scrolling down through this, you'll see we've created some analytics. And by the way, this is self-service analytics. So we are able to create these ourselves as users. For example, creating a view from either revenue perspective or from a quantity perspective. And here I can see some products in the product family 300 range. So this could be product groups or color or whatever you're selecting. And you can start comparing revenue and financial information within the system. So imagine that you're both doing a quantity-based plan in terms of forecast quantities, but you're also able to immediately say what the financial ramifications of that are. So you don't have to export this data into another space to go and do these kind of analytics. And you can see here we have information related to additional shifts being produced where we use additional shifts in our manufacturing space and creating different scenarios to try and resolve those manufacturing shortcomings. And for example, here I can have a quick overview in terms of which regions and which machines are affected, and very quickly see in which week what kind of capacity requirements I would have. typically here I can see I'm 123% loaded on a resource. And we know that we can't work harder than 100% in our factories. We need to resolve this. So from here, I can now take further action in the supply planning component. And as I scroll down, you'll see I can do comparison between different scenarios that I've created. Maybe I wanted to create a scenario where I utilize some of the subcontractors that I have available, or I want to work extra shifts. And what will that mean in terms of my revenues that I generate out of that? Or I want to just simply start looking at my gross margin by comparing those revenues. So I can see whether I use contract manufacturing or extra shifts, the margin is pretty similar. But if I stick with my baseline version, which is my standard capacity, I will probably do about 40% less in terms of my margins that I get. So and so forth. So these are multiple views from a financial perspective on my business. Now, I'm going to just close this again, go back to my network here, and how are these networks created in terms of interdependencies? So I've created a slightly different view, and I've focused on a smaller part of my network, and I can now see, if I zoom in here, that some of these locations interact with each other. So I can see here from Shanghai, I have some product flowing into India, and from India, that product is flowing into Israel here. So within Israel, if I zoom in a bit further, I can see there's a manufacturing plant here. If you click on it, we'll obviously show you the plant numbers, and there's a DC that distributes product all the way to the US. So I can see that there's a link all the way created from Taiwan or from China there, all the way through my network into the US. Now, I've opened a slightly different view in IBP. So this is one of the apps that we use. And this is more of a linear or a simpler way to represent that factories and that DCs. So here I can see the customer that's in the US, and I can see there's some highlighted lines on here. And if I click on these, it will show me the customer, the product that is being followed, product ID, and the lead time and the customer demand that's actually sitting in this location. And I can go right through this network here to my manufacturing facility. Here I can see this is manufacturing in Jerusalem, and there's another manufacturing facility as mentioned in India. So these are interdependent, and there's a logistics chain that has to transport product between these locations. So that's just a simple view from some of the high-level analytics. But if you ask a planner, what does he need? He is going to say, I need something that looks like Excel. So what we've done is we've actually embedded IBP as a hyperlink or as a link into Excel. So you'll see there's an add-on here created with various functionality which are not normally available in Excel. And the data that I'm seeing here is directly out of that IBP environment. So I can see different tabs in the spreadsheet that I've got here with live information being represented here. So I can see, for example, that customer that I looked at first, for that finished product that I've got, I can see there's a consensus demand that has been created for that. Now, of course, there's a demand planning process. There's a forecasting process where we maybe use different statistical forecasting methods to come up with a forecast, and we would possibly then have a sales input process as well with a salesman that maybe will get involved and sit with the customer So with this customer, he might have a process where he would plan in front of the customer. Now, of course, he's not going to carry his Excel, his laptop with him. He potentially just wants to log on to a web-based tool. So on his phone or on his tablet, he can actually log on there while that's opening up. I'll just explain a bit further and I'll get into that now. So here I see my consensus demand for my customer. And if I look at that network that I've just been looking at, there's a transport from one plant to the customer. And if I go back here, I can represent that transport from that plant 715 to the customer. And I can actually see by a week how much product will be transferred between the manufacturing or this was the DC and that customer. Now, if I look at the DC, we may want to see a view in terms of what's our stock holding. I'm just going to close this graph here at the top. I may want to see what is my demand for that location, what is my supply that's going to be there, and what's my current stock levels, and then my my inventory target. So I might create a inventory optimization plan in terms of safety stocks, and I want to carry a certain amount of inventory at all time. But due to demand fluctuations, the projected inventory in terms of current inventory and supply and usage, that inventory level will be adopted. So now I can sort of do an inventory plan for a certain DC and actually bring customer demand into that and supply from the manufacturing location. And then if I look at, for example, transport between my manufacturing facility and so this is my manufacturing facility and this is my DC, representing a road transport method here, I can then also look at my forecast in terms of transport. And then going right back into the network to my production facility here, I would then be able to look into production here. So this is my production plan that's been generated based on Optimizer that I've run, and I'll explain some of that now. And while I'm doing that, I have the capability to also look at my capacity. So here I can see, for example, a representation of my standard capacity without extra shifts. And this line on top here represents with extra shifts. So I'm still well within my production capacity for that manufacturing facility. Okay, so there are some more information regarding the distribution into India, for example, where I produce another product. And even there, I can actually have a view of capacity in that factory. Going right through to my bill of material, and this is a representation of that finished good. We'll use some sub-assemblies, some packaging material, and maybe another product, and this is the product that comes from India. That customer or that plant in India would also want to purchase some raw materials to produce. So this is a supplier purchase program from, this is from Shanghai, and I can see there what we're going to buy from certain suppliers within China. So this is a quick overview of how that works, but I haven't actually gone into how we can do scenario planning and that. So here we have some capabilities on top here regarding scenarios and the creation of new scenarios. So it's quite easy to create a new scenario and change some of these numbers to try and represent maybe a constraint plan and capacity, or I want to maybe create a scenario that is created to create additional demand. So I can quite easily put in a number in here. For example, I have a delta that I want to apply, and I want to maybe add another 20,000 to see if there's maybe a big tender coming in, and we want to see what will happen if I get a large quantity coming in here. I've already done that because it will require a little bit of an optimization run, but now I've already saved a new scenario, and I want to represent that scenario side by side here. So I have the capability to change here what information I want to see, what key figures I want to see on the screen, but I also have the capability to select all my scenarios that's been created. So here I'm going to select an additional, where I had additional demand created, and I've kept the baseline demand selected. And now what happens, it reloads and it adds in the scenario that I've created for additional demand. And you'll see at the moment, each of these key figures, the lines are showed side by side, so you can actually see what the differences are. And that 20,000, although I've created in that demand, it is showing me that I will not be able to meet that 20,000 in my demand plan. So there's a 7,000 shortfall in that week. And because of the lead time, even in some of the other weeks, it creates a shortfall. So that consumes all of the available stock in my network, and now won't be able to meet that demand. So for example, if I now go to my production capacity, that will now load the information and show me the same information, but now on the additional demand that's been loaded here. So here I can see from a capacity usage and a capacity load perspective, here I can see that my additional demand is actually loaded my production facility up to maximum available capacity for that period. Of course, it's within a week I loaded it, but there's a knock-on effect, obviously, in terms of production lead time and producing such a large quantity. So here you can see now that I have the capability to compare versions within my planning environment quite quickly. And if I look at that versions that's been created, I have the ability to now adopt and promote some of those versions. So if I select this promote function here and I apply that changes, what it will do now, if I'm happy with that additional demand version, it will now copy that information into my baseline plan as well. So bear in mind that in the background of this, there's a full baseline, there's a full copy happening. And I just refreshed the data, and now my baseline and additional plan are equal. So whatever scenario you're building within a planning space will then be able to transfer into this environment. Okay, so that was a quick overview of an end-to-end planning process, and I just want to go back into this web-based planning environment. There's an ID missing here. I just want to refresh that. Maybe just go back into the dashboarding environment. So this is another app, and what I see here now is that there are multiple views of my plan. So here I can see, for example, there are demand review process, an inventory review process, and for example, if I go into inventory, I can see information about inventory throughout my whole network. So if I wanted to evaluate my inventory carrying costs, which region carries the most inventory? Scrolling down here, I can see, for example, my financial targets are supported by inventory. So I have stock projection and I have financial targets. And I can see they roughly align. So from a stock perspective and what I'm expecting to achieve by revenue is roughly aligned. And here I see, for example, drivers, So revenue drivers or inventory drivers, and I can see demand variability is something that drives high inventory levels. So of course that is something that I may want to address, and so forth. So I am running out of time a little bit, but I just wanted to show you some of those version comparison capabilities are also available in the dashboarding environment here, where I can compare different versions and have drill down capabilities even into the versions that we have. Okay, thank you. I do want to allow a little bit of time still for questions, so I'll leave this up. I'm happy to answer any questions now. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Peter. Sure, that was a lot to take us through. Thank you for taking the time, and definitely very, very, very exciting. I'm sure you have tons of questions for Peter, and you are going to have the opportunity to ask them now. Peter, I'm not going to hold you any further, but when we talk about integrated business planning solutions, I have the first question, and that is, does IBP include multi-echelon inventory optimization capability?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, that's a question that comes up often because we talk about inventory optimization. Yes, it does. It actually covers the entire supply chain, and it considers all the nodes of that supply chain, and it does a single model to work out where's the best place to place that inventory. And then it does inventory optimization with providing safety stock information at each node of that supply chain.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. Another question is, do I need to implement SAP S/4HANA first before I implement IBP?
Absolutely no need to. In fact, IBP is a loose-standing cloud environment that we can connect into either ECC or into S4. And for a lot of customers, we integrate IBP into non-SAP products. So if you have a supply chain planning requirement, irrespective of the back-end ERP system that you're on, you can implement IBP on top of that. The benefit, of course, is that if you do a SAP to SAP integration, it's out-the-box integration with no need to develop fancy integration models. So that is perfectly possible.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Peter, for that clarification. And then one last question for you also is, I heard that SAP Analytics Cloud can be used for planning. Now, how is IBP different from SAC?
Yes, SAP Analytics Cloud is a budgeting tool that is predominantly used for corporate financial analysis and budgeting and the budgeting process. And in there, of course, you do profit and loss statements, you do calculations at cost center level, and of course, there are some product information in there. But it's not a supply chain planning tool. It's not an operational or tactical tool that helps you to decide exactly what kind of stock levels you should have or optimize your supply chain. So that's really the difference. SAP Analytics Cloud is a budgeting planning tool, and IBP is a supply chain planning product.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks so much for that clarification. Peter, thank you very, very much for your time this morning. We're going to move on now to gain more insight into the trends and challenges that are influencing manufacturing and maintenance operations. And so I'm going to bring on Carlos Portillo, SAP's EMEA South Business Development Manager. Carlos will be telling us how SAP can build intelligent, individualized products by connecting each customer to everything from product planning to delivery. Carlos, over to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. So yesterday we gave an overview of what is SAP Industry 4.0 strategy, and I mentioned a couple of scenarios. One was around intelligent products, intelligent factories, intelligent assets, and empowered people. So today, I'm gonna drill down more into details about what is the intelligent factory and also intelligent asset management. So I want to start first with some global trends that we typically see in manufacturing industries, regardless if it's process manufacturing, if it's discrete manufacturing. Yeah, so we see three main trends. One is around customer centricity. The second one is around visibility or insights. And the other one is how we see companies reinventing the way that they do business. Yeah. So from a customer centricity point of view, we see a big shift from mass production, meaning that I'm repetitively producing the same and the same over and over, yeah, into mass individualization. Yeah. So every time more and more we see customers and end consumers requesting individualized products, yeah, based on their specific needs and their specific configuration. And that brings a challenge into the manufacturing operations, because that means that each product in the shop floor is unique and it's different, and the configuration is different. So process instructions are different, production routes are different, assembly sequences are different, ingredients of substances can be different from each product to each product or from each batch to batch. So how can we still be agile in that scenario? Another example is outsourced manufacturing. We typically see a lot of manufacturing industries which are doing outsourced manufacturing, and manufacturing is coming back home. Yeah. So instead of outsourcing production operations, we see it more like in a distributed manufacturing network, meaning that customers are or companies are looking to have plants spread geographically in order to be able to respond faster to customer needs, deliver faster, but also we see a big trend into 3D printing and additive manufacturing as well. If we see from a total visibility point of view, yeah, you are very well familiar with deterministic models and KPIs. Yeah? So basically any type of KPI that can be easily converted via addition, subtraction, multiplication, divisions, etc. And we see a big trend from having KPIs that can be easily converted into more predictive algorithms. Yeah. So this way we can anticipate into possible future problems via predictive quality scenarios, predictive maintenance scenarios, or advanced analytics that can do root cause analysis and so forth. We also see a big trend from moving from paper-based execution systems or paper logs to record machine parameters into a digital way of collecting the data. Yeah. So a lot of companies are replacing those paper logs and having it digital. Others are even connecting to machines and everything, the automation, in order to automatically collect that data. So that moves us to moving from information of silos. So each machine, each system that we have in the shop floor, even business applications such as ERP, etc., have a lot of data, but they are not connected. Yeah, so we see a big gap between shop floor to top floor integration. Yeah, so it's typically two different worlds. Operational technology doesn't talk to information technology. Yeah. And the trend is that we see this vertical integration, shop floor to top floor, but also a horizontal integration across the supply chain. And the last one, from business innovation point of view, we see a big trend of companies that typically own assets. Yeah, for example, if you are an asset manufacturer, an asset operator, you buy a machine, for example, an air compressor, but you don't need the compressor. What you need is the compressed air. So we see a trend in many companies that are, instead of buying an asset or a machine, they're paying per use. So the OEMs or the asset manufacturers have to still own the assets, and they have to monitor how much are you consuming, and they will charge just per consumption. instead of selling the asset itself. Also, we see a lot of manual processes being highly automated. Yeah, so you want business rules to be automatically triggered and manufacturing processes to be self-adjusting instead of having people making decisions, which could be delayed or reactive. So these are some examples of trends. Yeah. So going into the details about what is intelligent factory. So what you see in the pyramid, let me just select the laser point. What you see in the pyramid is that we cover different type of scenarios. We cover shop floor to top floor integration, so IT to OT integration in a bi-directional communication flow. We can have it in a horizontal logistics process, fully integrated, so making manufacturing part of a end-to-end integrated business process from design to operate or design to consume. But also you can see we can do machine-to-machine orchestration in the shop floor. So based on the output of machine A, I want machine B to execute a specific operation. So Industry 4.0 and the intelligent factories, how can we correlate OT and IT data in real time in order to make faster, more flexible, and more agile and efficient manufacturing operations? And I will guide you in this presentation through some of our capabilities. Talking about capabilities, what you are seeing in this slide are different use cases and capabilities that we offer with our manufacturing applications. So we can do process enforcement and execution. So if you are looking to do manufacturing execution, how can you provide guidance to the operators on what they need to do? Or maybe even you want to eliminate all the paper-based execution systems and paper logs that exist in your shop floor. How can we leverage that? Yeah, so maybe you're looking to have an automatic machine setup. Imagine that you typically hand over the work instructions to an operator in a paper or via emails. And you're providing them information of what is the program that the machine needs to execute. And then we see the operator moving to the HMI. So why not doing that integration automatically? Why not setting the machine automatically, combining that business data and pushing it directly into the machine? Why not also doing automatic data collection? So the machines have a lot of data which can be used for analytical purposes or can be used for execution purposes. For example, if I want to automatically notify how much material I'm consuming in a weighing and dispensing process, for example. Or maybe I want to notify yield, scrap, non-conformance codes in an automatic way. The second scenario or use case is around product traceability. So we see more and more regulations and compliance topics, but also customers want to have a full traceability on how a product was produced. And with SAP applications around manufacturing, we support different levels of traceability. It can be piece by piece and component by component with a unique serialized number. It can be in a batch ID, etc. But the way we do traceability is not only knowing where it is or where it was produced. Basically, it's recording everything that is happening into these unique identifiers. So that way I would know who was the operator, at what time did the operation started, at what time the operation finished, what materials were consumed in what sequence, what were the machine parameters, if there were non-conformities, so which were they, if I did a test and repair, what did I took out, what did I repair. So everything is recorded in this unique identifier for traceability. The other use case is around how can we correlate OT and IT data in order to provide real-time manufacturing analytics that can be displayed in add-ons, in dashboards, in scorecards, in reports, but is consuming real-time information coming from operational technology and business information systems. And we can easily correlate that data in order to provide this real-time analytics. Quality management is a key pillar as well in our manufacturing portfolio. So we support in the ERP system all the quality planning processes, but also in the shop floor, how do we execute those inspection plans? How do we take samples? How will we do statistical process control, non-conformance management, test and repair, etc. So it's also a capability that we support. As I mentioned in the previous slide, we see customers that want to have analytics being done in milliseconds at the machine level. So that is what we call edge computing. So you want calculations happening at the machine level in milliseconds, or maybe you want to do a machine-to-machine orchestration. Yeah, so we have the technology in order to orchestrate and define those business rules that based on the output of machine A, I want machine B to execute a specific operation. As we mentioned in the sessions of yesterday, manufacturing is not an isolated line of business. It has to be fully integrated with business planning processes, with asset management processes. So in the manufacturing is where we are creating the products. Yeah, so the products are becoming physical. And we are creating a digital twin or a digital representation of these assets. For example, if I'm an asset manufacturer, that then I can use and collaborate with service providers, with OEMs, with asset operators, etc. And the last one is that we keep an eye on what are the technology trends, such as big data analytics, machine learning, AI, etc. And we are embedding those advanced technologies within our manufacturing applications. So that way we can do predictive quality, we can have an OEE root cause analysis, we can do predictive maintenance, or any other machine learning AI algorithm that you want in order to optimize the other functionalities or processes that you want to support. So how do we do this? So we have what you're seeing here in the right side is our manufacturing portfolio. So if you are an SAP ERP customer and maybe you're looking to move to S4HANA, or you are already in S4HANA, we have embedded functionality within the S4HANA in order to do manufacturing engineering. So for example, how we do the handover from engineering to manufacturing in a seamless and easy way. How do we do a optimal production planning and detailed scheduling? It's also embedded within the S4. And also, how do we provide safe environments for the operators and technicians and everyone that is whose labor is in the shop floor? We also have the manufacturing suite, which is our on-premise portfolio. So meaning that these are applications that can be deployed locally in your physical sites. And we have applications to do shop floor to top floor integration, real-time analytics, real-time insights. We have manufacturing execution and also applications that will allow us to integrate and communicate with the different machines. And we also have a cloud offering. So within the cloud offering, very similar to the on-premise, we offer manufacturing execution, we offer analytics, but we have additional functionality for different stakeholders such as supervisors, dispatchers, etc., in order to leverage other business scenarios and business processes that might not be available in the on-premise. Yeah, so you have the option to go fully cloud, you have the option to go fully on-premise, or also can be a combination, like hybrid between cloud and on-premise, depending on your specific needs, on your particular use cases. We as SAP can assist you in identifying what is the best solution architecture and the best applications based on your specific needs, based on your business requirements and objectives. Now, if we see it from a persona's point of view, we have different stakeholders with different objectives and different business needs and different processes that they need to execute. Here are a couple of them. So we have C-level executives on the top floor, where maybe they have to define which is the manufacturing strategy, which KPIs are going to be relevant to monitor, track, and trace. Maybe I want to standardize if I have multiple plants spread geographically. Maybe I want to do some plant comparison. Yeah, so how can I standardize? Which KPIs are relevant? What thresholds I'm going to set and define? And maybe we also have other stakeholders such as production planners, supervisors, operators, and even machines, because I want to also connect into the machines to collect data that will be consumed from an insights point of view, from an execution point of view, or from a planning point of view as well. Or also the data can be consumed for analytics. So different use cases for the data that we can collect from the machines. Let's have a deep dive into some of these stakeholders. So thinking in C-level executives. Yeah. So they will be very interested in defining KPIs and having real-time insight into the performance of the KPIs. So I have here some screenshots of our applications. So we provide a set of out-of-the-box KPIs, but also with the possibility for you to create your own KPIs, your ad hoc KPIs correlating OT and IT data. So you can define, this is more like a global view in case you have plants spread geographically within your specific country or globally. Yeah, so you can define which are the most relevant KPIs that you want to see in real time. And each time that you select a specific KPI or tile, the chart below will be updated. So that way you can have a good glimpse into which specific locations are really affecting the performance of this specific KPI. From here, you can drill down. Yeah, so you can click in this icon and drill down into the Asia Pacific and Japan plant. And you can have more insight into what is happening there, and you can slice and dice the information because you have all the data model within and the data set within the manufacturing application. So that way you can correlate the data and slice and dice it as you wish in order to understand what's happening. We provide some advanced analytics in order to guide you in this sense. Yeah? So we now are in the OE Insights, and the OE Insights is collecting machine data, execution data, planning data, a lot of data from the operations in order to provide you real-time information about how the OE is performing. So again, we have the tiles, the OE, and split it within the different KPIs, availability, performance, and quality. And if you select each of these tiles, the graphs below will be automatically updated, offering the latest and real-time information. Yeah. So right now we have selected OEE. We can see what is the trend for each week of the OEE. We see the trend is improving. We see also cumulative trends for each of the KPIs that compose the OEE. So we see that from availability point of view, it's keeping steady. If we see from a performance, it's more or less steady, but we see quality problems. Yeah? So from week 12 to week 13, we see a drop in quality, which is actually affecting the OE. If we see it from a time model point of view, this graph gives you a good idea of how much minutes you have lost due to different reasons. So we have at the beginning the total production time, and we start seeing some losses. Yeah, this could be speed losses, unscheduled downtimes, quality losses, and at the end you can actually see what is the value operating time that you have once you take out all those times that you have lost to different reasons. If we see the bottom of the screen, we have a machine learning algorithm that is grouping all the defect codes, failure codes, on and planned downtime codes, speed losses codes, quality losses and quality codes, etc. And it's grouping them in order to provide you, like in a type of heat map, how many minutes you have lost to different reasons or purposes. So this way you can drill down and understand, why do I have 28,000 minutes of speed losses that is affecting the performance? Or why do I have 11,000 minutes lost due to quality and scrap? Yeah, so each time that you see these type of arrows means that you can drill down, and I can slice and dice and understand better what are the reasons for scrapping or what are the reasons for reworks. Yeah, and this depends on how you are configuring the manufacturing applications in the shop floor. So the manufacturing execution is where everything is going to be actually collected by the machines and the operators, and that data is being going to be actually fed into these charts. If we see the other personas, yeah, a production planner, yeah, he has to balance the demand to plant capacity, and he has to create an optimal production plan that will minimize manufacturing costs, maximize research utilization, minimize setup times, etc. Yeah. So we also offer applications in order for them to do all these production planning and detailed scheduling. So what you're seeing here is a screen. It's a screenshot where we have different resources, which can be machines, work centers, or production lines, and all the different operations that has been allocated into each of these resources, and they have been optimized. Yeah, so we have an optimizer, which is an algorithm that you can play with the different variables, and you can choose what is more relevant for you, if it's more relevant to increase resource utilization, or it's more relevant to minimize setup times, or it's more relevant to optimize the batch size, or if it's more relevant to minimize manufacturing costs, or a combination of them. So you can play with the variables that are influencing the optimizer, and the system will propose you some alternatives, which then you can select which is the best option. And once you have set it in place, then it becomes not anymore in a planning, but you can actually release those process and production orders to the shop floor. So now that we are releasing, we hand it over to the supervisor. And the supervisor has a lot of activities. Yeah. First, he needs to see how many shifts he needs to plan maybe for next week or the 2 coming weeks. Yeah, and how many shifts would he need will depend on how much production he has to meet. Yeah, so he has to do shift planning, then he has to do labor planning. So he has to define which operators are going to be executing in his shift, and also in which workstation or production line, etc. Yeah, so that is what we call labor planning and shift planning. And then he has to dispatch. So just to give you some ideas of the look and feel, and this is the user interface where the supervisor can do shift planning and labor scheduling. Yeah. So you can define different shifts. Here we see them color-coded: in blue the day shift, green the evening shift, and red the night shift. But you can assign more shifts. Then you can assign the operators that we see here in this list to the different shifts. So we see Ann Miller assigned to the day shift, we see Jenny assigned to the evening shift, and we see Luca assigned to the night shift. And also you see here this code, DB, DCBR, etc. This is the work center or the resource where Ann Miller is going to be actually working. Yeah? So you're not only assigning to a shift, but you can also assign the operators to a specific work center, resource, or production line. What happens if someone calls? For example, here we say Claire Fisher, that is in gray, it's a leave. But also on Wednesday, it's unplanned. Yeah, so you can assign unavailability, and there could be many reasons. For example, Claire called right now in the morning, I'm not going to be able to make it to my shift because my kid is sick, I have to take him to the hospital or something. So you can assign unavailability for that specific resource or operator, and then you can see in the queue of operators who could cover Claire Fisher in that shift. Then comes the dispatching and monitoring. So from a dispatching and monitoring point of view, the supervisor is receiving the production plan that was planned by the production planner, but maybe he needs to do some fine tunings because maybe the machine that was planned to be used today has an unplanned downtime, and we can see it with these red icons. So all the operations that were assigned to this resource, and this is real-time information that is being collected, we can easily drag and drop these operations into another resource. Yeah. But also we can see machine breakdowns, we can see the progress in real time of operations, we can see high priority orders, we can see missing labor. So basically the supervisor can have a good idea in real time of what's happening into the lines and the resources that he's responsible for. When the supervisor is handing over to the operators need to receive operator guidance. What do they need to do? What data do they need to collect? What materials do they need to consume? What program does the machine need to execute, etc. Yeah, so we also have a production operator dashboard that can be deployed in industrial touchscreens, in HMIs or mobile devices, etc. And this is the main screen where the operator has to first log into the application and select which work center, production line, or resource he's going to be working at. And then he has the queue of all the production orders or process orders that has been released and are in queue to be executed. Yeah. So if we click in each one of these lines, we have additional information. What is the product that has to be built? We see the different production phases. In this case, it's adding a premix, mixing, and then cleaning. And in each phase, we have details of the production phase. We have work instructions or process instructions. We have what materials need to be consumed, what activities has to be done, what data it's needed to be collected, and you can add as many more transactions into each of the production phases. So here it's an example from a work instruction point of view. Once the operation is started, I can see real-time data being fed, in 3D or 2D animations, and I can do from here material consumptions automatically. So the system will connect to the machine. It will indicate how much material has to be consumed. It will do the weighing and dispensing, for example, and will automatically log that material consumptions without any human intervention. In case there is no integration possibility to the automation, then we can offer the fields for the operator to manually feed that data. Yeah, so somehow we are eliminating all the paper-based and moving it into digital. Another example, it can be flat files. You can upload flat files as the process instructions. Also, if we see the tile for material consumptions, we can see which materials has to be consumed in each phase and which are the thresholds. Yeah, so the system can actually validate if how much was weighed and dispensed, it's within the thresholds or not. Yeah. Now the last one is because it's very clear that Industry 4.0 it's about connecting shop floor to top floor. So how can we connect into machines? How can we use machine data for the execution, for insights, for planning, etc.? So that is part of our capabilities. So what we see here in this slide is that we really don't care what brand of equipment you have and what models of machines. It's around communication protocols. Yeah. So there's a lot of communication protocols such as OPC UA. It could be Modbus, Profinet, Profibus, etc. That is what is important for us. Yeah. And we have an application called SAP Plan Connectivity that will allow us to connect agnostically and seamlessly to all these different vendors. And at the top, you have the ERP system. So that data that we are collecting from business applications and also equipments and machines that exist in the shop floor can be used in our intelligent factory scenarios for manufacturing execution, for manufacturing insights, for quality maintenance, or other use cases that you can see relevant for your specific operations and industry. So that data can be streamed, that raw data can be directly streamed in real time, so you can see how the temperature is performing, how the flow is performing, how the weighing and dispensing is performing, or you could also actually correlate it with business data and create more advanced KPIs or aggregated KPIs where you can have other type of insights as well. Yeah. Now, regarding asset management, what is the role of asset management? Yeah. So everybody knows that downtime is a big enemy for production operations. And it's a big question that I have. Yeah. So if downtime is a big enemy, why are the activities so often misaligned with manufacturing processes? Yeah. If asset health is very important and we actually collect a lot of machine data, why is still that machine data living in silos? Why is it still living just in the machine itself? Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons of why connecting into the machines, into the assets. And some of the reasons is because we know that assets and maintaining the assets, it's a cost center. Yeah. So companies are looking on how can we reduce as much as possible the cost of maintaining, but at the same time increasing asset reliability and asset performance and uptime. Yeah. So how can we keep that balance? Yeah. So that makes it important to have intelligent asset management connected. Here's some KPIs that I want to share. So based on SAP benchmarking, we see that a lot of organizations, 76% of the companies that were interviewed, consider predictive failures. Having predictive algorithms is very important, but only 21% of companies are actually capable to doing it or are actually doing it. And also we see that 83% of the companies that have been interviewed in this survey considers to the asset management process and the metrics very important, but only 13% are actually capable to do it. And the reason is because assets are typically not connected. Yeah. Data lives in silos. Yeah. So one of the importance of intelligent assets is how can we connect into those assets? How can we analyze, process, and share that asset management data in different applications? Also, as I mentioned at the beginning, we see different business models. We see instead of selling assets and equipments, we see pay-per-use, as I mentioned in the beginning. I don't need an air compressor. I need a compressed air. So why shall I buy an air compressor? Yeah. Also, from a collaboration point of view, we see asset operators collaborating more with asset manufacturers and even maintenance service providers. So collaboration is key. So based on the collaboration, I want to talk about a digital twin. So a digital twin is composed on how an asset was designed, how the asset was manufactured and produced, how it was delivered, and how it's been maintained and how it's been operating. Yeah. So all these different views we use and combine in order to create a digital twin or a digital representation of an asset. So we have the entire life cycle of the assets within SAP applications, and we know how it was designed, how it was built, how it was delivered, how it's operating, and how it's been maintained. And once we have this digital twin, it makes it possible to collaborate and share between the asset operators. You as an asset operator might be interested in sharing with the asset manufacturer how their assets are performing under your conditions. And maybe with service providers, you are giving them insight into how asset health is performing right now so they can proactively anticipate into possible problems and be more agile when maintenance operations and activities has to be executed. If we see it from a process point of view, different steps that we can fully cover. Yeah, so not only creating this digital twin to collaborate and share data, but also doing more like a strategy management point of view. How can I define the risk and the criticality of each equipment? How can I do reliability analysis? How can I define and maintain my maintenance strategy in order to minimize those maintenance costs that I was mentioning, but at the same time increasing reliability, performance, and uptime? How can I connect into those assets and use the asset data to do condition-based maintenance, to do fault recognition patterns, to have predictive algorithms, etc. And based on the input, I can automatically create work orders that then I would like to schedule because I have finite resources, finite technicians. How can I optimally schedule those activities based on priorities, based on criticality, etc. And how can I execute those activities in mobile devices, and how can I monitor and improve it? So the entire life cycle of how we maintain the assets, define the strategy, etc. is fully covered also with SAP applications. So with that, I have reached the end of my presentation. I hope it was clear enough. Are there any questions?
Well, Carlos, we certainly covered a lot. So thank you very, very, very much. Yes, there are questions. There are plenty of questions, and I'll get to them in a minute. But first, I just wanted to talk about a special offer and invite Wesley Esmond to introduce us to this offer. I think this one you'll really, really like, because what it will do is kickstart your business transformation journey and save you tons and tons of money, and who doesn't like that? So Wesley, can I bring it to you, and can you tell us a little bit about the special offer? And then Carlos, I'll come back to you with questions in a minute.
Sure, thanks, Mimi. Can you guys hear me okay on that side?
Yep.
100%.
Fantastic. I'm going to share my screen very quickly just to give you an overview of this offer. So maybe by a show of hands on the call, who's heard of Rise with SAP? All right. Okay. Well, let me take you very, very briefly through what Rise with SAP is, and then I want to explain to you where supply chain comes into this and how it fits in. So we like to call Rise with SAP our concierge service to the cloud, basically to help our customers move to the cloud, move their core operations to the cloud, and reduce the total cost of ownership. Because what it provides is all these good things you are seeing here in these columns. So business process intelligence, tools and service, infrastructure. So your entire infrastructure is going to be hosted for you on a hyperscaler of your choosing. The business technology platform, the networks for a future networked economy, and then obviously our latest and greatest platform in the cloud, S/4HANA Cloud. Now, all of this comes together under one contract with us and your partners to take you to the cloud and reduce your total cost of ownership. Where supply chain